If you are a Christian creative, there's a high chance that you enjoy the works of C.S. Lewis, who is a giant in the world of Christianity, not only for his thoughtful essays and books like Mere Christianity, but of course for his creative works in the Chronicles of Narnia series and many other books like The Great Divorce, Until We Have Faces, and tons more. Now, if you haven't heard, Netflix has acquired the film rights to the Chronicles of Narnia movies and is going forward with film director Greta Gerwig in producing The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and maybe a few more of the movies, and she will be directing The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe for sure. Now, this came with some skepticism at first, but I like Greta Gerwig. I think she's a solid director. I don't know if she's the right pick for the job of Narnia, and I think a lot of people probably feel that way, especially in the Christian space. No matter how you felt about Barbie, if you enjoyed it, if you didn't enjoy it, there's probably still a level of skepticism, even if you enjoyed it, to her taking on the Chronicles of Narnia. Early on, she was quoted in many interviews saying that she is terrified in taking on such a beloved source material. And to be honest, I think she should be terrified. This is a beloved series for many reasons, and one of those big reasons is that it is a creative work for Christianity, that this is by a Christian writer who is producing work inspired by his faith. And so I really don't know where Greta Gerwig is at in her faith. She obviously comes from a background of Catholicism. She alludes to that in her movie Lady Bird, which honestly, Lady Bird, I love that movie. I think it's a great movie. And I think the elements of Catholicism in that movie are pretty downplayed, but it's there. And I think that touches on Greta Gerwig's past and her upbringing. And so obviously she is introduced into Narnia at some point in her life, hopefully before taking on this series of movies. But already I was skeptical. But then a new rumor has come about for the casting of Aslan. Apparently, it is rumored that Meryl Streep will be voicing Aslan. And that is such an L. If that is true, I probably won't watch the series at all. Under certain circumstances, I can appreciate gender swapping a character. Typically, an adaptation will gender swap a character because of a lack of female representation, right? And sometimes I can get on board with that, and I can get on board with race swapping characters if it makes sense for the character. Like, I think Nick Fury is a great example of that done really well in the Marvel movies. But there are certain characters that just doesn't work, and there are certain stories that just doesn't work. I think another fear that people have is worrying about if this new Chronicles of Narnia series will just be a rehash and retread of familiar territory. Like the original release from 2006, I think, was a great adaptation of the books. Everyone pretty much enjoyed those. Had great character design, had great casting. I mean, Liam Neeson as Aslan was like pitch perfect casting. He nailed that. It was a perfect role for him. And so I think people are a little concerned of like, well, are we just going to see more of the same? What's really going to be different about this other than like slapping Netflix's logo on it? And I think the filmmakers are probably concerned about that too. I'm sure Greta Gerwig is probably concerned, like, I don't want to just keep doing what's already been done. I do want to do something new. But I don't think you do that with Aslan, right? And as someone who grew up with the books, I haven't read them all. I have them back here. But I was homeschooled for 2 years growing up in elementary school for 4th and 5th grade, and my curriculum was based around the Chronicles of Narnia. So I read the books and had kind of like my English studies built around the Chronicles of Narnia. So I have a deep love for it, a deep appreciation for it, and I especially have a deep appreciation for it as a work of Christian fiction, of Christian fantasy. Christianity doesn't really have a lot of that. You know, we're too afraid of stumbling over, wonky theological perspectives, and we're too scared to, like, dream a little bit because of that. But C.S. Lewis wasn't worried about that. And there are plenty of people, especially fundamentalists, who have issue with C.S. Lewis's theology represented in his fiction works especially. But I think generally speaking, most Christians will say, this is our community story. Of course, it can go into other people's lives, and we want non-Christians to read it, but this is definitely a Christian work, And so here's the thing. If you want to make it new, if you want to make it fresh, if you want to tread new ground for especially a big character like Aslan, you don't gender swap that. Because, one, there is already fantastic female representation in this story. You have Lucy, you have Susan, you have the White Witch. Lots of female energy there, right? And sure, they're not adult women, so maybe that still feels restricting to some women. I can appreciate that, but at the same time, it's a fantasy story driven at children. So that is the target audience. But the feminine is represented both in the good side of Susan and Lucy, and in the antagonist side with the White Witch. So you have pretty good female representation for a story that is fantasy driven and also aimed at children. So gender swapping the character isn't the way to go if you want to keep things new and fresh and different, especially in the visual medium of film. But I do have an idea. Netflix, if you're listening out there, I have an idea that could really help you so that you don't ruin this for you and just fumble the bag completely and probably lose subscribers over. When I read this growing up, I read it multiple times, there is this image in the book illustrated on a very small page. It's a very small illustration that I tend to think about. It's like an image that comes to my mind even now, and this is kind of like the only one that comes to mind other than the book cover. But there's an image in here that I want to show you. So towards the end of the book, when Aslan meets with the White Witch, there's a moment where they go off by themselves and have a meeting, and this is where they discuss Aslan giving up his life. And so you see on here that he's walking on his hind legs with his arms behind his back. Now when we look back at the film from 2006, the animal creatures are pretty much, they try to be photorealistic, and they try to be like, this is an animal. This is an animal who can talk, okay? They walk on all fours. Maybe some of the other characters like the badgers and a few others might act a little abnormally for their species, but I think for the most part, all the animals are pretty faithfully represented. There's the mystical creatures like the fawns and the centaurs and everyone else who obviously are these hybrids of man and beast. But for the most part, all the animal characters are pretty much faithfully animals that are also given the ability to speak. So you never see Aslan walking around on his hind legs and his arms behind his back, but an illustrator drew this into the book. And it makes me think about another illustration in one of my favorite graphic novels, which is an adaptation of the Book of Revelation. This adaptation is done by Matt Dorff and illustrations by Chris Coel. And I loved this book so much. It just has super great artwork. Chris Coel is amazing. I don't know if I'm saying his last name right, but I loved his work so much in here that I got this piece here is a Chris Coel piece, and I got that because I just loved his work so much. So this is Jesus back here, I know it's hard to see. And so the illustrations in this book are so creative. They really contextualize what the Book of Revelation is saying in a unique way, in a way that you wouldn't normally think about, and it's just so beautiful. The artwork is haunting, it's beautiful, it's filled with wonder, it's creative. And so there's one that I want to show you. And so in the Book of Revelation references Jesus as the Lamb, Chris Coel takes artistic inspiration and decides to make this half-man, half-lamb hybrid. Some of y'all might take issue with that. I think it's really fascinating, I think it's really interesting, and visually it's just cool. You can see here on the cover that that's where the lamb is. And so, Netflix, if you're trying to think of a new way to keep this story fresh, if you're trying to think of a new way to do this and make it not just a rehash of what we had before. You don't do that by gender swapping important characters. Not this story. You can do that with other stories. You can do that with Harry Potter. You can do that with other stuff. But especially, don't do that with Aslan. But instead of doing what the traditional Hollywood L would be in gender swapping this character, go get a stacked voice actor who is a male, and I would lean into some of this unique artwork that is found in the book. Have this kind of be a man-lion hybrid, and you don't have to get too grotesque with it. You don't have to overthink it. You don't have to Ninja Turtles it. But I think there's something in there that you can visually change what an animal is in this world, since it is fantasy. It is animals talking, and so if they can talk, why can't a lion stand on his hind legs and walk with his hands behind his back and think like that? He is still drawn like a lion, all fours type of lion in this book, but I think there's creative ways to do the animals and the creatures differently that could be, very visually interesting to start. Hopefully not terrifying to children, but there obviously does have to be some spooky elements because it's Narnia and there's witches and wolves that are scary, and I'm trying to think of other creatures. There was a really creepy bat dude in the original one that as a 6th grader I was like, whoa, that's mega creepy, but I like seeing it. This guy should be in the world of Narnia. I'm hoping that there's enough pushback on this that Meryl Streep isn't the one that they choose. Meryl Streep would be a pretty dope White Witch. I don't know if she has the energy for that. I think Tilda Swinton did a great job as the White Witch in the first one. Super great casting there. I heard Charlie XCX, pop star, might be in the running for the White Witch. Not a bad choice. Pretty interesting. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments. Are you for this casting choice? Do you hate it? Do you like my suggestion? Do you hate that? Fight the White Witch by giving this video a like and subscribing to this channel. And feel free to check out some of my other work where I talk about filmmaking. And obviously I take a lot of inspiration from C.S. Lewis. And I think every Christian creative probably does, because we don't got a lot of Christian creatives. We're too scared to create because of theological boxes that intimidate us. So I think we need people like Lewis, and I think we need people like Tolkien that aren't just adapting Bible stories, but are going out and making unique stories. So anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.